Insellmilkom, sinjuri, nirringrazzjakom li qed issegwu il-programm. Illum il-programm se jixxandar bl-Ingliż, se nitkellmu ma' Dr. Edward De Bono, se jagħtina aġġornament dwar il-każ li għaddej fil-qorti bħalissa tal-assassinju ta' Daphne Caruana Galizia u l-qtil ta' Dr. Chircop. Thank you, Dr. De Bono. Once again, thank you for updating us on the case of Daphne Caruana Galizia.
As you must have heard, prosecution have closed its evidence, 154 witnesses, and now the jury has been left for the evidence of the defense. The accused did not want to give evidence, as they are entitled according to law. They can remain silent, but I think it would be worthwhile to summarize what has happened during the past 3 weeks.
Thank you.
There are two questions which a lot of people are asking. Why was Dr. Chircop's jury, that is the murder of Dr. Chircop, and the murder or assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia, insofar as it is connected to Robert and Adrian Ajus, the Maxar brothers, and Jamie Vella, and George De Giorgio, were done together.
Why was that?
Well, let's start. Robert and Adrian Ajus had loaned 800,000 euros from Dr. Chircop. After some time, Dr. Chircop was demanding that he be paid back the monies loaned to Robert and Adrian Ajus. They couldn't, or they didn't, want to pay him, and so, allegedly, they concocted a plan to assassinate him, to murder him, by getting in touch with Jamie Vella, who was entrusted to shoot the lawyer in the garage in Birkirkara, and to involve as well George De Giorgio, who did actually drive the getaway car, and Vincent Muscat, known as Il Cojo. When this murder was done, executed, soon after Vincent Muscat, according to the evidence he gave in court, received 20,000 euros for this murder, whilst George De Giorgio insisted with the brothers Ajus that he be paid for his participation in the murder, and was paid 30,000 euros. Allegedly, these 30,000 euros were paid to him in order that he could settle a debt on a boat named Maya, which was involved in the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia. Hence, the connection between Dr. Chircop's murder and Daphne Caruana Galizia's assassination.
It's very complex,
Yes,
to be honest with you.
because one has to remember that from this boat Maya, the murderers, the assassins, detonated the bomb which brought Daphne to smithereens.
So who owned the boat?
The boat is owned by George de Giorgio. Presently it's confiscated because it's under investigation. But we heard that Jamie Vella, who actually shot at Dr. Chircop, used to go up to Bidnia and point out the house where Daphne used to live, to Kochu, that is Vincent Muscat, and the De Giorgio brothers.
U issa sanaddu għal servizz ta' Net News.
L-ewwel xut Ivan Formosa għalli hu kien li bih personalment id-dajsa bl-isem Maya lil George de Giorgio, wieħed mill-akkużati ewlenin. De Giorgio kien xtara d-dajsa fi frar tal-2017 għal 30,000 euro, ftit xhur qabel il-qtil ta' Daphne Caruana Galizia. It-tieni xut tal-ġurnata kien il-konsulent tal-proprjetà Peter Bartet li ta' dettalji dwar il-beħ ta' maħżen f'ħal ormi li jinvolvi lil Carmel Chircop, żewġ aħwa u individwi oħrajn, fosthom Adriana Ġus u Ryan Xkembri. Bartet spjega kif Chircop wera interess immedjat fil-maħżen u li sieħbu Ray Xkembri kien involut fl-ewwel diskussjonijiet. Wara li l-ewwel ftehim falla minħabba kwistjonijiet tal-pjanar. Ftehim ieħor wassal biex il-maħżen imbieħ lill-kumpanija Erom, proprjetà ta' Ryan Xkembri u oħrajn. Bartet xedt li Chircop esprima dispjaċir li daħal f'dan id-dil, speċjalment wara li Ryan Xkembri li kien il-finanzjatur ewlieni f'daqqa waħda. Skont ix-xut Adrian kien qallu li kellhom problema kbira, ma kinux jafu fejn kien Ryan. Bartet żied jgħid li minkejja kollox ma kellux esperjenzi negattivi ma' Adriana Ġus u li dan dejjem kien trasparenti miegħu. Il-qorti samat ukoll lin-notar Melvin Theuma li kkonferma li kien involut fi tranzizzjoni ta' 750,000 euro bejn il-kumpanija Erom u Carmel Chircop. Iċċara li s-somma kienet parti minn dikjarazzjoni bilaterali, iżda ma kellux informazzjoni oħra li lin mid-dokument.
So in a way, it's evident that Daphne's murder was pre-planned and that it was in the pipeline for quite a while.
Absolutely. George de Giorgio was to drive the getaway car, while Jamie Vella and Vincent Muscat had to follow in a van. Vella was to open fire with an AK-47 rifle. But this plan to murder her this way changed, and we heard that in the first plan of the assassination, there were involved Dr. Chris Cardona, who was the deputy Labour Party leader and an associate of his, Dr. David Gutt. This assassination plan was stalled because the 2017 election was round the corner and the powers that be realized that it would not be efficient for them to execute the murder before 2017.
I have a question about Dr. Chircop. Why would Dr. Chircop lend money to these people? I mean, first of all, how did he know them? Secondly, why did he lend that big amount of money? And is he some sort of money lender? Does he provide that sort of service?
I think he had various dealings which were rather nefarious on this particular aspect. He used to lend a lot of money to various people, and this loan wasn't just the right thing to do because it cost his life. Coming back to the Caruana Galizia murder, assassination, therefore, soon after the 2017 general election, plans resumed to assassinate Daphne. In the meantime, Vincent Muscat gave evidence that Chris Cardona was asked to give intelligence details on Daphne, that is, her whereabouts, what car she was using, which places she frequented. They wanted to know exactly her moves. Now, in this second plan to assassinate Daphne, Dr. Cardona's associate, a certain Dr. David Gutt, used to go down to Marsa and instill in the murderers, who after all, as you know, the actual executioners have been convicted to 40 years imprisonment, whilst Vincent Muscat, because he gave evidence, turned what we used to call Queen's evidence, was given a 15-year sentence, used to urge them, the Giorgio brothers and Vincent Muscat, sort of to conclude this murder ASAP. This is the evidence which was given by Vincent Muscat in the jury.
Il-verżjoni ta' Vince Muscat il-koħħu kienet veritira u ma setax tiġi ddubitata għalhekk ingħata l-proklama fuq il-każ ta' Carmel Chircop. Dan iddikjaraħ l-assistent kummissarju Keith Arnaud fix-xhieda li juta lill-qorti waqt il-ġuri li għaddej brabta mal-assassinju tal-ġurnalista Daphne Caruana Galizia u l-qtil tal-avukat Chircop. Fil-ġuri ħareġ illi l-koħħu kellu informazzjoni illi ġiet ikkollaborata, kien ċar fi kliemu u der li kien jaf id-dettalji ta' dak kollu illi ġara f'dawn il-każijiet. Kif Keith Arnaud spjega li d-dettalji li ħarġu f'dak li kien spjega il-koħħu ma setgħux jiġu iddubitati, fosthom il-fatt li l-vajżer tal-karozza li jinstaqet mill-kumpless tal-garaxxijiet tal-vittma kien imniżżel u anke d-dettalji tal-ilbis tal-vittma, xhieda li waslet sabiex saru l-arresti. Fil-qorti komplew joħorġu wkoll id-dettalji dwar ix-xhieda ta' Nicole Brignone, l-istess żagħżugħa li implikat lill-eks Prim Ministru Joseph Muscat bħala l-persuna li qabbat lill-akkużati sabiex joqtlu lil Daphne Caruana Galizia, fejn ġie spjegat li Brignone kienet qalet lill-pulizija li l-aħwa De Giorgio kienu kkuntattjaw lill-partner tagħha Kevin Ellul fil-ħabs sabiex jassigurawh li mhux ħajissemma f'dan il-każ. Keith Arnaud jispjega li Brignone sostniet li Ellul kien kontinwament jgħid li se jkun qed ipattija lill-aħwa tal-maksar b'karozzi bomba.
Can you indicate what the length of time was between Dr. Chircop's murder and Daphne Caruana Galizia's assassination?
If I recollect correctly, I think it was a question of 7 or 9 months, not more. But what happened then is that, as you all know, Melvin Theuma was the go-between between the murderers, the executioners, and one of the mandators, because I am pretty sure that there are more mandators than the one we have heard till today, that is Jürgen Fenech. And this Melvin Theuma was an intelligent man who taped Jürgen Fenech, and tapes usually don't lie. And show the involvement of Jürgen Fenech in the assassination of Daphne.
So can these tapes still be used as evidence?
Of course, they are the main evidence against Jürgen Fenech, which I'm pretty sure will be filed in court as evidence. Melvin was afraid that they were going to murder him, and he prepared 2 ice boxes where he had USBs, which relate all that happened in the car, because he was a driver and he used to drive Jürgen around from the airport back to home or vice versa, wherever he needed to be driven around. And in this box, coincidentally and ironically, he put a photograph of himself with Keith Kembry at the office of the Prime Minister, with another photograph behind that photograph of Joseph Muscat and Keith Kembry. Now, obviously, the fact that he put this photograph in this ice cream box, tells a story in itself. Why did he do so? What was he afraid of? He was afraid that they were going to murder him, so he wanted an insurance that the whole story would be let out if they would eventually murder the go-between Melvin Theuma. After the murder, don't forget that of Daphne, he wanted to be paid because the assassins were demanding a payment of 150,000, and Jürgen Fenech was not taking his calls, so he decided to go to Melliha with Joseph Muscat's chief security officer, and to demand that Keith Kembry, in actual fact, ensures that the payment is effected.
And who made the payment, or who was supposed to make the payment?
Payment was supposed to be made by Jürgen Fenech, and it seems with the participation of Keith Kembry. Because why would you go to Melliha to demand that payment be effected in order that the assassins be paid? But why did he take with him the chief security officer of corrupt Muscat? What's the reason? What involvement did this security officer have? Why would one take him with him? And we should not forget neither that when Jürgen Fenech was in hospital, Keith Kembry sent a letter with Dr. Vella, his GP, and who was also Jürgen Fenech's doctor, telling him to ensure that in his statements he would involve wholly Dr. Chris Cardona. How ironic, eh?
Erġa' segwi dan il-programm fuq Net on Demand.
Dr. Chris Cardona mentioned in the first assassination plan, mentioned in the second plan where Daphne was actually executed, and these alleged criminals are now trying to shift the blame from one person to another. So when we state that Castile, that is the office of the Prime Minister, was involved in this murder, this is what we are stating, that all these people close to the office of the Prime Minister had something to do and something to say concerning the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia. Apart from this, one should understand that we do not know the full story yet.
Absolutely.
We only know that Jürgen Fenech is accused of, as a mandator, of the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia. But why were not Chris Cardona? Why were not David Gatt? Why was not Keith Kembry? Why was not the chief security of Joseph Muscat investigated by the police commissioner? Who stopped this investigation? One has to state that on the day of the murder, magistrate, now Judge Consuelo Sherry Herrera, the two persons she called to give evidence in her hall on that evening when she started the investigation, before the Caruana Galizia family asked for her recusal, were Keith Kembry and Chris Cardona. If they were highly suspicious at the initial stages of the murder and assassination, why were no further investigations carried out by the police commissioner?
Why?
Tell me. I don't know. But I've got my own reasons, and I believe that the police commissioner has not executed his duties in fulfilling all that he has to fulfill, in retrieving all evidence and bringing to the fore, actually to the courts, all the co-mandators in Daphne's murder. Jürgen Fenech is a mandator, but I do not think that he is the only mandator who ordered Daphne's death. There are other people which today we do not know about yet and we haven't yet heard of. There are innuendos, there are stories, there is evidence, but for some odd reason, the Commissioner of Police stopped investigating these other people who were very close to corrupt Muscat.
Do you think this will come to light eventually?
I hope it would. Justice would not be done if it would not come to light. And this brings me to another point. Why has Labour not been able to send to the European Union two people it has chosen to be, or they tried to choose, to become judges of the European Court? What's the reason? The reason is simple. On account of Daphne's murder, on account of the investigation of the three judges, that is, Judge Michael Mallia, Judge Joseph Sait Policino, and Judge Abigail Lofaro, they gave government a number of recommendations which they had to implement. But as you know, and as all our televiewers know, these recommendations were not implemented.
Hemm evidenza tal-involviment ta' uffiċjali pubbliċi fosthom Keith Kembry u oħrajn fl-uffiċċju tiegħu, kif ukoll membri fil-korp tal-Pulizija wara d-delitt u li b'xi mod għenu lill-allegati eżekuturi. Din hi waħda mill-ħafna konklużjonijiet li joħorġu mill-inkjesta pubblika indipendenti li tmexxiet mill-eks Prim Imħallef Joseph Sait Policino, mill-eks Imħallef Michael Mallia u mill-Imħallef Abigail Lofaro. Ir-rapport jirreferi speċifikament għall-ex Chief of Staff Kastilja li kien il-wiċċ tal-Gvern Laburista bħala l-persuna li kien kruċjali fil-ħolqien ta' rabtiet bejn il-Gvern u ċerti negozji. Dan meta l-inkjesta sabet provi ta' rabtiet bejn nies fil-poter u nies involuti fin-negozju. Tantu hekk li diversi proġetti maġġuri li saru mill-Gvern Laburista spiċċaw taħt l-iskrutinju tal-Awditur Ġenerali jew ta' inkjesti maġisterjali. Bl-istess mod, il-bord qal ukoll li anke l-eks Prim Ministru Joseph Muscat u responsabbli għal dak li ġara, partikolarment għad-deċiżjoni tiegħu fl-ewwel lok li ma jieħux passi serji fil-konfront ta' Chircop u Konrad Mizzi meta ġew implikati fil-Panama Papers, kif ukoll li baqa' jżommhom fil-kariga wara l-pubblikazzjoni tal-istorja ta' 17 Black. Fir-rapport ingħad li fil-waqt li Muscat seta' jiġġustifika d-deċiżjoni tiegħu dwar il-Panama Papers bħala deċiżjoni politika żbaljata, xi ħaġa li l-bord ma aċċettax. Żgur li ma setax jagħmel l-istess dwar ta' 17 Black la darba saret allegazzjoni ta' aġir kriminali serju li timplikhom it-tnejn. Il-bord innota l-pjan orkestrat biex il-ġurnaliżmu investigattiv ta' Defni Caruana Galizia jiġi neutralizzat u dan biex kun limitat l-ħsara għal poter politiku u biex kun limitat il-preġudizzju irrimedjabbli li setaw isofru dawk li kienu interessati jibqgħu javvanzaw il-proġetti anke għall-interess personali tagħhom. Pjan li l-bord jgħid li rnexxa għax kien ċentralment organizzat mill-uffiċċju tal-Prim Ministru. Ir-rapport jgħid li membri għoljin fil-korp kienu wkoll involuti fi ħbiberiji mhux xierqa wara li seħħ dan id-delitt makabru u jinsisti li s-sens ta' impunità kien mifrux f'kull livell qisha qarnita. Fil-fatt, ir-rapport li fih aktar minn 430 paġna isemmi r-rabta bejn ċirku ristretta politiċi, negozjanti u kriminali. Fil-fatt jgħid li l-politika ta' business friendly tal-gvern spiċċat fisser money friendly u dan m'għandu qatt isir b'dannu assaltna ta' dritt. Ir-rapport fuq l-inkjesta jgħid b'mod ċar li l-pulizija kellhom obbligu jagħtu l-protezzjoni fil-waqt li l-istat kellu jħares ħajjet il-ġurnalista. Fost il-fatturi l-aktar xokkanti li joħorġu minn dan ir-rapport hemm il-punt li jagħmel referenza l viċinanza li kien hemm bejn l-allegati eżekuturi tal-qtil ma' persuni prominenti fl-amministrazzjoni pubblika. Fil-fatt il-bord irrimarka li min qatel lil Caruana Galizia seraħ moħħhom il-fatt li ma kien se jinqabad propju minħabba din il-qrubija man-nies fil-poter. L-inkjesta tirakkomanda fost l-oħrajn li joħoloq reat speċifiku għal persuni f'kariga pubblika li jfixklu jew jittantaw jfixklu l-pulizija fil-qadi ta' dmirijietom u reat simili għal min jassoċja ruħu ma' kriminalità fuq stil mafjuż. U meħtieġ ukoll li titfassal liġi ġdida għal kontra persuni li jtelfu l-ġustizzja.
And how can people in the cabinet of Joseph Muscat and in the cabinet of Robert Abela or candidates with the Labour Party expect to be chosen by the European Union to sit as judges on the European Court when they have not implemented serious recommendations which ensure the rule of law in our country? And this is the main reason why people forwarded by Labour to the European Union are being not chosen. They can't expect to be chosen unless Malta ensures that those recommendations will be actually enacted into law. The recommendations with regards to wealth explanations, the recommendations with regard to the omission of not doing one's duty, which would be not only a crime but punishable, considered as a serious crime, and other recommendations. And it is only then that I am pretty sure about this, that the European Union will start considering the people that Labour would be sending to its various authorities and fora to represent our country. Two people have been not accepted, Dr. Edward Zammit-Lewis and Dr. Veronique Dalli. This is the basic reason why these were not, these recommendations by the Malta government were not considered useful or acceptable to the European Union.
It's a shame, really, for the country.
It is.
I'd like to go back to something you brought up, the payment for Daphne's murder, 150,000. Was that paid? Who paid it? And was that the full payment?
It seems from the evidence we have till now that each murderer, that is the De Giorgio brothers and Vincent Muscat had to receive €50,000 each.
And did they receive it?
Whether they received it or not, I am not quite sure, but I'm sure that there was a problem for them to receive it initially, because Jürgen Fenech was trying not to pay this amount of money, and there is evidence that Melvin Theuma, when he was trying to get paid because the murderers were insisting on their payment, had to even go to Keith Kembry. Keith Kembry is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Joseph Muscat's Chief of Staff. Keith Kembry, in one interview he gave, or one evidence he was giving in court, had said, "All that I know, the Prime Minister knows." So there's a lot of information which is still missing in this chain of information which is coming out. It all indicates that people in Castile were involved in the murder. It's there. Jürgen Fenech, I wouldn't say he is involved, no doubt about it, but he was not the only mandator. He did this, I don't know, because he must have been benefiting quite a lot from the contracts which Muscat was dishing out to him, because somebody who is invited to his parties in Girgenti, where not even the ministers of state were present, tells a lot of the affinity between Joseph Muscat and Jürgen Fenech. Don't forget that he gave him, as a present, 3 bottles of wine, Petrus, worth €6,000 each, with the dates of his daughter's birth, if I'm not mistaken, and 2 watches Bulgari, for his wife, which cost about 12,000-18,000 each. This is the man who was leading our country from 2013 to 2019. And recently, and this is quite interesting to get to know, that there has been a judgment meted out by Magistrate Dr. Rachel Montebello on the 24th of April 2025 in a libel suit between Michael Stivala and Professor Arnett Cassola, where Michael Stivala was felt libeled that Professor Cassola sort of alleged that the employment which Michael Stivala gave corrupt Muscat was on account of the contracts, on account of the impunity, on account of what he was left to do and not being sued and looked into by the police and the authorities. And the magistrate said she doesn't think that an ordinary man would not think that this was payback time for Joseph Muscat. Mm-hmm. So the court is saying the payments, the employment of Joseph Muscat, in actual fact, is a travesty, is a sham, but this is, or could be, amount to payback time for the benefits that he received under Muscat's governance. Mm. And obviously she refers as well to other contracts which Muscat entered into after losing the premiership.
You mean for consultancy services? That's what you're talking about. About
Akutur SA, which was a subsidiary of Vitals, where over 3 years Muscat had to receive €560,000, and where it has been now confirmed that this was the political fund of Vitals SA. Apart from that, also the Fortina contract of the Zammitta Bonas, where they are giving him if I'm not mistaken, 1,500 a month for the concessions he must have given them, and from the tower he led them built on the front.
And what sort of consultancy services does he provide?
I am pretty sure none. These are payback time, these are payments which are made, as the judge said, as the magistrate said, for services rendered. This is basically the corrupt deals why most people refer to Muscat as corrupt Muscat. Not only the Maltese refer to him as such, but also, don't forget, the OCCRP, who in 2019 considered him the most corrupt politician of the year.
Can we go back to the payments of these murders? Dr. Chircop, you're mentioning 30,000 and 20,000 euros for the life of Dr. Chircop, and 150,000 euros for Daphne Caruana Galizia. I mean, life is very cheap here.
Life is cheap. Life is cheap. We have lost our values of the sacrality of life. Even today, with all the debate on euthanasia, it's evident that I'm all for palliative care, but when we lose the value of life in its integrity, then we've lost everything. And you can see how cheap it is. You can kill somebody for 20,000 euros, for 30,000 euros. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. I would expect something of this entity, of this gravity, would at least, one would expect 150,000 or more. I'm not telling you that it should be done, but receiving 20,000 to participate in a murder is absolutely abysmal and shameful.
But don't you think that's probably one of the reasons why they were caught? Because they're amateurs in this business.
They were caught not because they were amateurs, they were caught because the FBI came to Malta. If the FBI did not come to Malta, our Maltese police, with all due respect to the policemen who do their duty, and there are many policemen who do their duty, we would not have arrived at this stage. Do not forget that the commander or the officer at AFM, as soon as Daphne was murdered, immediately made contact with the FBI to come to Malta to ensure that investigations start in a serious manner. This wasn't Joseph Muscat who asked him to come, but he did it on his own initiative, as he ought to do, and he should be lauded about it.
Dan huwa l-post fejn Daphne Caruana Galizia ġiet assassinata nhar it-2 ta' Ottubru tal-2017 permezz ta' karozza bomba. L-imħallef, il-ġurati, l-akkużati u l-avukati tagħhom ittieħdu fil-post fejn seħħ id-delittu fil-post li l-imputati allegatament marru wara l-esekuzzjoni tal-pjan illi kellhom. Vince Muscat, li huwa x-xut prinċipali tal-prosekuzzjoni f'dan il-każ, spjega lill-ġurati il-passi kollha li ħadu hu flimkien mal-aħwa De Giorgio fil-ġranet li waslu għal qtil ta' Daphne Caruana Galizia, hekk kif kienu huma illi segwewha qabel ma splodit il-bomba. L-aċċess beda propju fil-post fejn twettaq id-delitt fil-bidnija, fejn il-ġurati semgħu ir-rendikont ta' dak li ġara qabel u anka wara li splodit il-bomba qattila. Imbagħad ittieħdu fil-vantage point għalqa fil-bidnija li jidher li kien il-post li minnu kienet qed tiġi segwita il-ġurnalista. L-istess post il-instab sigaret li ġie impejjeb minn Alfred De Giorgio, hu George De Giorgio. Wara l-bidnija, il-ġuri flimkien mal-imħallef u l-akkużati imxew lejn it-tinda tal-patata fil-Marsa. Tinda illi hija magħrufa bħala l-post li kienu jiltaqgħu l-imputati sabiex isir il-pjan tal-assassinju, fil-waqt li serva wkoll bħala stora l-bomba. Min din it-tinda kienu wkoll ġew arrestati numru ta' persuni li kellhom x'jaqsmu mad-delitt fosthom George De Giorgio u ħuħ Alfred flimkien ma' Vince Muscat il-koħħu. Bl-aħħar post li jżuru l-ġurati jkun garax fin-Naxxar. Il-garax illi fih saret il-bomba bomba qattila li ħallit lil Daphne Caruana Galizia mejta fil-bidnija. Kien nhar it-tnejn 16 ta' Ottubru tal-2017, meta għal-ħabta ta' 3 ta' wara nofsinhar splodit il-bomba li tpoġġiet taħt il-karozza ta' Daphne Caruana Galizia fil-bidnija, bir-riżultat li l-ġurnalista tilfet ħajjita bl-aktar mod makabru. Sa issa qed jiskontaw sentenza ta' priġunerija brabta ma' dan id-delitt George u Alfred De Giorgio flimkien ma' Vince Muscat. Fil-waqt li l-aħwa tal-maksar Robert u Adrian Aġus, Jorgen Fenek u anka Jamie Vella qed jgħaddu ġuri brabta ma' dan l-assassinju makabru illi seħ kważi 8 snin ilu.
You mentioned 154 witnesses. Can you shed some light into any other evidence that might interest people watching us today?
In a nutshell, this was the evidence which was brought out. There was evidence given by the FBI officials which were perfect in the way they developed the case. There was evidence of Assistant Commissioner Keith Arnaud, which was very much up to scratch. There was evidence of the people who were on site soon after the murder, who actually were there, who saw the car, Daphne's car, being blown up and her screaming in the car. Yes, but at the end of the day, most of the evidence collated then was forensic evidence, which science obviously helped them come to the conclusions that we have today.
So can you talk us through the next phase of this case?
Now, the defense will start producing, if it has, its evidence. If it has no witnesses to bring forward, then obviously they'll start closing the evidence and they would start addressing the jury. But it seems that there are people who are going to be brought to the witness stand by the defense next week.
So this is going to go on and on for much longer?
We expect that another 3 weeks, it will take 3 weeks to have the finalization of this jury.
And what should one expect on conclusion of these 3 weeks?
I hope that there is enough evidence for the accused to be found guilty, but this depends on the jury, on what they have heard during the past 3 weeks.
But the accused, I mean, you're mentioning a few people here, and you've mentioned other people who are involved, and they're not being accused right now. So what happens to those people?
Well, the case is still open against them, and they can still be investigated if they participated in this murder.
The country wants closure of this case. The family of Daphne Caruana Galizia want closure. I'm sure also the Chircop family. Do you think this is going to happen, and will it happen soon?
Hopefully in the next 3 weeks we'll have judgment in this case, and one hopes for the best that the Jorgen Fenek trial starts as soon as possible for everyone to get closure. I was mentioning before that Labour cannot send people abroad which are to be accepted easily by the European institutions. Daphne's murder is a blotch on this country which will remain with us until justice is made to Daphne and her family. We cannot reintegrate ourselves, we cannot come forward with honours until justice be meted out. And this procrastination, 7 years, 7 months since her murder, and still we are not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I am not happy that only the executioners are in prison. I want the mandators, all the mandators who concocted her murder to be held responsible for such a heinous crime.
Can we refer to Jürgen Fenech, that he's out on bail right now? Where is that going to lead?
Well, that, although he's out on bail, because our law states that after 5 years from when he is arrested, a person, the courts are bound to send him out on bail. He has to go to the police station regularly to sign the bail book. He's got police behind his door following his movements. So, although
Isn't that a big cost to the country?
Of course it is a big cost to the country. Of course it is. The big cost to the country, this is the epilogue. The big cost to the country is Daphne's murder. They've lost this country's reputation. They have attacked the fourth pillar of the state, which is the media, journalism. And when you do that, you stultify the growth of a nation. You're not respected anymore. You're not looked as a serious jurisdiction. If I'm thinking to come to Malta to invest and see that there's no closure in such a high-profile murder, I think twice before coming to this nation to invest my money. I want security if I'm coming to invest here, to provide work for the workers. And the faster we come and see an end to this terrible, heinous crime, we will not move on.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Bono. Thank you once again for explaining this. Signori, grazzi li segwejtu il-programm għal darbohra l-lum. Tkellimt ma' Dr. Edward De Bono dwar il-kas li għaddej fil-qorti bħalissa tal-qtil ta' Dr. Chircop u l-assassinju ta' Daphne Caruana Galizia. Jekk għandkom xi kummenti ibatuhom permezz tal-WhatsApp fuq in-numru li jidher fuq l-iskrin. Jiena Leja Hogg għal Net TV u nixtieqilkom il-lejl tajjeb.